You know that feeling when your body just stops cooperating? You're trying to think or move or just stay steady, and suddenly it feels like you hit a wall that you didn't see coming. I'm Dr. Kenny, IFM certified functional medicine practitioner, and I approach patterns just like this as a root cause health detective because fatigue and brain fog are one of those things that quietly pull you away from living your best life. And when I map cases like this, there's usually a quiet conversation that's happening underneath in systems that often don't get the attention they deserve. So in this video, we're going to break down these root causes of fatigue and brain fog in a way that actually matches what your body's been trying to communicate. And if this is already ringing true or resonates, tapping the like button helps this message reach someone else who's been hitting the same invisible walls. If you live with fatigue or brain fog, there's usually a moment when you realize something deeper has to be going on. You're in the middle of a normal day, doing the things that you've done 100 of times in your life, and it suddenly feels like you've hit that wall. Your capacity just goes down the drain. Your body's there, but maybe it's harder to think or harder to move even, harder to just stay in the present moment. It can also be an incredibly lonely experience when nobody understands what you're going through. It often gets written off as being just tired, but there may be related things going on. Your sleep might feel a little lighter or less refreshing. Maybe you've got some gut issues or skin issues or headaches that have been going on for some time as well. And maybe none of these symptoms are dramatic enough on their own, but together they add an immense amount of weight to your day. What makes this so hard sometimes too is the inconsistency of symptoms. One day you can push through a full schedule and maybe you'll pay for it later, for instance. Or another day, a much smaller effort leaves you completely wiped out by the late morning. And it's easy to turn inward and ask, am I exaggerating this or is it just stress? Am I missing something obvious? And underneath those questions is this quieter fear that this might be your new normal. To understand why this pattern shows up, maybe it'll help to look at the explanations that you've probably already heard and been given and why they fall short of what's really going on. The first stop for many people when they hit that wall for enough times is they show up to a primary care visit and you describe the fatigue, the fog, or maybe the gut changes and the skin sensitivities. Blood work is run, the results come back, and they reassure you that there's nothing that's actually serious going on, and that maybe it's just stress or mood changes, or perhaps you're just getting older. Maybe you get a label like anxiety or depression or IBS or a vague fatigue diagnosis. And of course, it can be incredibly validating at first. I always say when you can define something, you can deal with something. But if no one explains how it's connected and goes deeper and asks why, it can only feel like a partial answer. You may have a name and a label, but not a map to healing on the other side. And after the primary care visit, oftentimes you'll go see a specialist. Each specialist focuses on serious problems in their own area, which is incredibly important, but oftentimes it leaves you with normal labs, and you can end up with a pile of nothing major reports that really show no unified story or validate the true experience you're having. And then after you've explored all the conventional options, you turn to the wellness community. And instead of everything looks fine, they may give you a long list of things to try, right? Maybe this supplement for this symptom, or try this MLM product for this pain point. The message can get clouded very quickly and feel like it's more of a blame and shame game. Both of these paths can quietly strip the power from you. The conventional route says you seem fine. The wellness route says just do more. And so it's logical to conclude that maybe you're the problem. But in reality, what is missing is a simple way to see your symptoms as part of a larger conversation, something that's interconnected in your body. So next, let's sketch this conversation in as plain language as possible so that you can see why fatigue and reactivity and brain fog so often travel together. There's a hidden conversation happening in your body. When your energy, reactivity, and brain function all feel like they're off at the same time, it often reflects a shared loop between four main systems. And these are your immune sensors, your energy makers, your brain, and the signals that are traveling through your gut and connective tissues. One of these main immune sensor players is a cell called your mast cell. They sit in places where your body comes into contact with the outside world, your gut lining, your respiratory tracts, and your skin. One of their main jobs is to notice changes, and when something feels risky, to send chemical signals that call in additional immune cells. A normal, moderate response is protective, but when they are more sensitive than they need to be or touchier, those signals can become frequent, widespread, and out of control in some cases. Mitochondria live inside your cells and help turn food into energy. When they are supported with adequate resources and less stress chemistry, you can feel reasonably steady energy, and your brain can stay clear long enough to handle the demands of daily life. When your mitochondria are strained, you feel it as energy that runs out too quickly, pouring from the proverbial empty cup, even when you may be doing the right things on paper. And in the research around long-term fatigue experiences, newer reviews describe that there are mitochondrial changes that show up alongside the deep tiredness, the difficulty with focusing, which lines up with what most people report in actual life. Your brain is always listening and interpreting signals. It monitors these signals about immune activity, energy status, and what's happening inside of your body's tissues. When the brain receives regular messages of something is not right, it adjusts its focus, its motivation, how much energy and capacity it's willing to actually spend. This can also show up as brain fog, lower resilience to stress, and feeling both wired and tired any given time of day. And last, the gut and connective tissues sit in the middle of all of this. They are densely populated with mast cells, as well as nerves and blood vessels, and so they are deeply interconnected to the systems we just talked about. So inflammation and irritation in your gut or connective tissues sends loud and fast messages throughout the entire body, and this also impacts how efficiently your mitochondria are able to work. Over time, talking about each of these 4 areas, a loop can develop. Mast cells can become more sensitive and send out more warning signals. And those warning signals can lead to additional mitochondrial strain. When the brain feels that strain, it can downshift its own function, and then the brain's response that feeds back to how your body is holding tension, and couple that with regular inflammation in the gut, and it just adds fuel to the fire. Your symptoms, brain fog, fatigue, overreactivity, they are the surface expression of this functional loop happening underneath. And understanding this idea is not about memorizing these terms. It's about having a framework that helps to match your lived experience, that has a foundation in your chemistry and how it's deeply interconnected. And by the way, if you're the type of person who likes to see how these ideas show up in the research, I've put together a free research summary that you can download in the pinned comment in the description below. Next, we're going to talk about how to bring this loop even closer to home and look at how it actually plays out in real life. When this loop is active, again, we're talking mast cells, mitochondria, brain, and gut and connective tissues, we can start to tease out a particular pattern even when symptoms feel random. You might notice that certain things set off a particular flare day. It could be a heavier meal or a stretch of poor sleep, or particularly stressful conversation or event. And the next day, or maybe even 2 days later, you wake up and you feel like you're already dragging. During those flares, focusing on simple tasks can feel like trying to read through a dirty window, and it just seems so impossible to reach and to grasp. You may find yourself having to read the same sentence 10 times to fully digest it, or perhaps your body feels strangely agitated or jumpy, or your heart rate is spiking. Small stressors seem to be hitting harder than they should, and you just want to curl up into a ball. And oftentimes, changes to your gut health are riding right alongside. Bloating or constipation or discomfort just show up when your other symptoms are also loud. What ties all of this together is not that you are weak or too sensitive. It's that this loop, these immune sensors, the energy systems, your brain, your gut, are talking to each other in a way that keeps the whole system on high red alert. It lowers the threshold for sensitivity in all of these systems body-wide. Next, let's look more closely at this gut and connective tissue connection as the busy communication hubs inside of this loop. Your gut and connective tissues are two places where this conversation gets particularly loud. Again, they are packed with mast cells, nerves, and blood vessels. And so when these areas stay irritated or inflamed, they send this constant state of signals back to the brain and the immune system. And the signals that it's sending are cues of either safety or distress. There is growing research that shows the direct connection in the gut-brain axis and how gut inflammation or shifts in the microbiome can travel alongside our nervous system and immune pathways and show up alongside symptoms like changes in mood or clarity or stress tolerance in real life. Connective tissue doesn't get a lot of love either. It's basically the scaffolding that supports your body. It's not just your joints or your tendons or your ligaments. It's also present in your skin and in your fascia and in your spaces between cells. When this tissue is more reactive or inflamed, you may feel this diffuse, hard-to-describe pain throughout the body or in specific areas. You can almost think of your connective tissue as this busy intersection where there's a lot of signals that cross at once. When the traffic is flowing smoothly, you don't notice it, but when there are traffic jams, you can feel the slowdown on a very deep, profound level. Those same traffic jams that are occurring from inflammation or reactivity in the gut and the connective tissues are sending signals again to the brain as well as the mitochondria that tell them to either shut down or try and work harder. Now, talking about this complex presentation, a question often arises because many people can trace their symptoms to a season where something shifted in their health. With the COVID-19 pandemic, sometimes it follows an infection. Sometimes it shows up after a surgery or a major life event like a big move or a job change or having a child. For others, it is harder to pinpoint a particular event, and that's okay. The way I see this is over the last several years, most people have lived through repeated viral infections, ongoing chronic stress that seems to be stacking up, disrupted routines, and also higher background exposures through all kinds of stimuli. None of these factors alone are the culprit or can be pinned as causing this loop, but they do add up to add weight to an overloaded system. The mast cells may become more reactive, mitochondria may have to work harder to produce the same amount of energy, and the brain may be staying on guard longer because of what's going on in the background. Because this shift has become an ingrained part of our society and our culture in a way, it can be harder to notice until you start to look back and try and put the pieces together. And understanding the broader context is important because not only does it return a sense of empowerment back to your story, but it means that your experience is not random bad luck, definitely not personal failure, and that it's baked into a society and a culture and a shift that has been building for some time. And honestly, when it comes to your body, this is part of how a sensitive, intelligent system responds when it's been nudged past its comfort zone for too long. And with that in mind, it becomes even more important, I believe, to stay grounded. The goal of this video is not to make you self-diagnose or feel pressured to fix everything on your own. It's to help give you a language and a framework so that you can bring this into your next healthcare conversation. This video is meant to be a broad map, but it can't account for your individual health history and your sum of life experiences. If this loop sounds familiar, you don't have to name it as a new condition or even label it. A simple place to start is by sharing the pattern that you're feeling itself. Say something like, my energy, my gut, my brain fog. They tend to flare together at certain stressors or in certain moments. Can we explore that? And then see where that conversation leads. A gentle next step is to start with simple noticing. You might jot down what tends to happen in the day or two before a flare if you're able to, and which symptoms often travel together. Those observations can be valuable data, and the right practitioner should look at those and help you try and draw as many connections as possible. The next question that comes up here oftentimes when we're talking about immune resilience and stress resilience is the idea of leaky gut, better called intestinal hyperpermeability. And in this video, I go over 5 root causes and fixes that you can explore to help start making sense of how it may be tied to inflammation, brain fog, and fatigue. I'm Dr. Kenny, Root Cause Health Detective. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.